and we appreciate you joining us. It is 9:06, and we are joined now by Glenn West on AM 1070. We'll get an update on what's going on with Univos Unida. Glenn, good morning.
Good morning, Craig. How are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks a lot for coming on this morning, and we appreciate that. First of all, tell us a little bit about Univos Unida, what it's all about, and what the game plan is.
All right. Univos Unida is a community activity organization that is primarily mission is to kind of educate and work with issues that affect the Latino and Hispanic communities in the Odessa area. Particular focuses are on education and social reform and stuff like that.
Okay, now coming up, I know that Univos Unida has a demonstration. I guess you're making it clear it's not a protest, but a demonstration.
Yeah, Craig, it's it's not about protest or a thing like that, but it's more of a civic demonstration to kind of exercise their First Amendment right to kind of get out and educate Odessans on some of the upcoming bills that affect the Hispanic and Latino communities in Odessa and their school systems and stuff like that.
And tell us where it's going to be and when.
Okay, it's going to be at the Ector County Courthouse. I think the intention is to meet somewhere around 4th and Grant at about 3:30 on Tuesday, March 29th.
What can we expect from this?
Primarily, some groups of people who are concerned about these particular issues and stuff are going to, have signs and some shirts and slogans and stuff and kind of demonstrate and kind of let their presence be known around the courthouse area where a lot of Odessans pass by and stuff like that. So just kind of raise awareness to these types of issues.
Right now, the demonstrations, the way I understand, will be regarding recent immigration bills that are being talked about in Austin with our legislature.
Yes, sir. That's a big part of their concern because a lot of the things that are in there, the different bills tend to criminalize different acts of, immigrants, changing the way certain things are classified. Another, big issue is, trying to talk about, the constitutionality of children born on U.S. soil, if they're still citizens or not. There's a lot of debate about that stuff going on right now. And it's not so much, to try to sway opinions as it is make people kind of aware of what's going on so they can kind of get out there and cast their vote and their opinion and call the representative and let them know what their ideas are on the subject.
What big concerns then do you have? Does voter ID play into this at all?
It's on the list of bills and stuff that concern, that are concerned with that, the voter ID. I mean, me personally, I'm against that bill, not so much because I think voter ID is a bad idea. I think it's a great idea. It's just that the problem with electronic systems or computers or changes, they're all still databases. They're all going to have the same garbage once they're managed by people. They never get kind of maintained poorly, and kind of as a taxpayer, I kind of hate paying for all kinds of new contraptions that don't accomplish anything for me,
Well, but a voter ID would not. It simply would ask you to prove who you are before you vote.
Oh, and like I said, I don't have an issue with that. I just think that the current systems can do that too. You show up with your voter ID card. I just registered or re-registered to vote because I moved recently and changed districts and everything, and I had to go down and had to show my driver's license and fill out a lot of information and verify my physical address. To me, that seemed perfectly sufficient. I'm pretty sure that the lady at the courthouse knew exactly who I was when I was done.
The critics, those who are against voter ID, say it's discriminatory and disenfranchising for the poor people and minorities and the elderly. And I don't quite see how that works, but anyway, that's the argument. That
is one argument, and there's a fringe element, a small percentage of those people who are disenfranchised by changing methodologies if they're used to a certain way, particularly like the elderly and the older people and stuff. They have trouble shifting to new systems. So there's some level of people who get disenfranchised when you shift systems like that. But again, like I said, the issues that it's being sold to us, the people that it's supposed to fix, is supposed to bring more accuracy to the records and stuff. I don't. I'm a computer scientist, a physicist, a nuclear engineer, and I've worked with these databases for years and years and years, building them, creating them, and you put all these thoughts and ideas into them, and they have really good on paper, but they just, once you get garbage in, you get garbage out. They're just never maintained, and they're really, really expensive.
All right, 12 minutes after 9 on AM 1070. Glenn West with us on AM 1070 with Una Voz Unida. And the demonstration, not a protest, but the demonstration is coming up in Odessa on the 29th of March. And education is a big thing, too. Here I notice that Chuck Eisner's involved. What education things are you concerned about?
Well, right now they're making a lot of, I think everybody in Odessa is aware, particularly with like the Odessa College and the local Ector County Independent School District, a lot of the cuts and stuff that are made to the programs. And, one of the probably the more controversial cuts that are being made and stuff are to some of the after-school programs and social work programs that are specifically designated to dropouts and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people in the different communities that are worried about that because those programs do specifically kind of affect more your minority groups. And the question is, and the big argument's always, well, these kids are kind of troublemakers to begin with and stuff like that, and that's kind of an issue kind of near and dear to my heart because, I was a troublemaker too as a kid too, and I kind of think, a lot of those programs kind of put me where I'm at. Now I'm a responsible citizen, and then I pay, a significant portion of taxes each year, and contribute to society. So I think those programs are good, and I think they're relatively inexpensive and need to kind of stay in place. There's some tweaks and modifications to make anything better, but definitely cutting them is not good, especially when you look at a lot of the different ways we're cutting to spend. We're adding different money to certain things and certain construction projects that don't really help, but we're cutting schools and education, That's just kind of important to me.
We'll say hi to a caller, and it is 9:13 right now at AM 1070, and you are on the morning show with Glenn West on AM 1070. Good morning.
Yes, sir. I agree with you a lot, but in the past, you had the representatives that could explain that the open borders were a net plus for our overall economy, our employment, and it actually, our economy virtually benefited from our open borders like we've had in the past. And now you don't have the people, the representatives that can explain that these closed borders hurt the small business person, but they benefit your big corporations. And why is that? Why does the big corporation benefit from these closed borders? Don't let anybody in. But your small business person, that's where your jobs start. They are the ones that suffer from these closed borders.
Well, we're a small business. I don't think we suffer. Glenn, any thoughts on that?
I have a couple of thoughts. We, as a country and a nation, we had pretty much open border policies till around 1929, and that's really when you saw the rise of the industrial complex and the global markets and stuff kind of come into place. And the closed border helped the big company because the big company can relocate to Mexico. Ford, GM, they can put their plant down there. And down there, there's nothing that really protects the wage laws and stuff like that. Or the small business, and I'm not talking ultra small, but more like the medium-sized company, they can't afford to do that. So when you take away your large, cheap labor pool here, and I'm not just talking about immigrants, I'm talking everyone, that works in that pool. When you minimize that pool and you make that cost more expensive by raising minimum wage and doing things like that to these smaller businesses, and you raise the cost of insurance and you raise the cost of doing business, those small businesses can't survive. But the big company who can relocate to China, the big company that can relocate to Mexico, the big company that can relocate to Bangladesh, to them, they benefit. And it makes it easy for them to justify to the people here, like, well, it's just too expensive. I have to move. I can't afford the labor costs. And then they're perfectly within their right to do that, by creating that situation.
All right, Glenn West with us, 916 Una Voz Unida. Glenn, what is the position of Una Voz Unida with the open borders, with illegal aliens coming into the country?
Well, I think the real issue is, right now the current law says, you can't come across the border customs and inspection. You can't come across the border, by presenting false information and stuff like that. And I think the real issue is the inherent law itself is wrong. And I think that what we're advocating and looking for is responsible change of the current immigration rules and stuff like that to get something that's workable. I kind of look at it from a Jeffersonian standpoint. You want immigrants, you want the right kind of immigrants who can stand on their own, but you don't want to provide, excessive encouragement. And I think that's where we got to work on too, is the benefits programs and stuff like that. You can't entice people to come up here for the bounty per se, as the old economist Smith said, but you got to entice them to come up here for the right reasons, to come up here to be strong, to work good for their family, and to improve themselves.
Well, when you talk about laws being changed, what laws would you like to see changed?
Primarily, I would like to see the federal immigration law changed. I kind of just a blanket law that makes immigration very difficult and stuff to get here for the right people is kind of a burden. And because it's so backlogged and because the bureaucracy is so thick, it kind of invites people to kind of take risks and come across the border. And what the law actually changed in a way that made sense, where people can kind of have freedom of movement, which is kind of really what we were looking for back in 1776. These people should be able to come across. They should be able to move back and forth with their families and stuff like that. And, the market economy will govern exactly and regulate how many people come and go. And as far as, like, illegal activity, we already have, all the basic laws are covered. Murder's illegal, stealing's illegal. All that stuff will kind of clean out people who you don't want, just through the natural, system of criminal justice.
I noticed that Art Neal with Univosa Unida would like to drop the term illegal from the discussion. I'm wondering if you're on board with that too.
Well, unfortunately, you can't drop the term illegal while the law still sits on the books. So I think what the real work, and me and Art, we kind of can talk about it and stuff on how we want to go with that. But the real goal should be to get rid of the law that makes it illegal. And then we can drop the illegal from the term.
Well, I mean, so what would you do then? Just have wide open borders and everybody can come in?
Wide open borders wouldn't make a difference. And the reason is the people who have good jobs in Mexico, the people who have good jobs in Canada, and the people who are able to thrive in that system aren't going to come across here. The people who are looking for opportunities are still going to come across here, whether it's legal or illegal, and they're going to seek that opportunity. So what I think we need to do is make sure our system is, our social societies and our civil societies are set up so that people who want to come in here and contribute, start businesses, and grow the economy and create jobs and stuff like that can get here. And people who want to work hard and make a better life for their children can get here and improve the society. And I think we have a good criminal justice system to weed out all the people who would want to create issues and destroy that and get rid of them.
Yeah, but I mean, they're coming across by droves right now, and we don't seem to be able to stop them.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say droves. I mean, as a percentage of people who've immigrated throughout history, compared to the current size of the population, immigration is still moving at about a very similar percentage historically. I mean, it may seem like droves, but when you realize the fact that the United States now has 350 million, approaching 400 million really fast, it's not really droves. It's the normal trickle.
I don't know if I'd call it a trickle. There's millions of illegal aliens in the country right now. Now, would you be in support of amnesty for these people?
Would I be in support of amnesty? Amnesty in terms of if the only thing they did was immigrate illegally, I'm not in favor of amnesty for anyone who commits a crime against another person or violates another person's rights. So I'm not in favor of amnesty for that, but I'm in favor of amnesty for everyone that's here, because everyone that's here and everyone that's productive, if you were to take all those people away, you would cripple, the economy. You would cripple our society. You would, all these people, you can't just take a community that's existed and been amongst us and separate them out. That's, I think historically we already know all the issues with that. We've seen that over and over in the past.
We'll say hi to another caller. It's 921, and you are on the air with Glenn West on AM 1070. Good morning.
Good morning, Craig.
Morning.
I'm sorry I got in on this a little late. I didn't hear who your guest is.
His name is Glenn West, and he is with Univosa Unida.
Okay. I don't see how he can have the beliefs that he does. I mean, yeah, we may be having the same amount of people coming in today that we had for generations, but my people, when the Germans were coming over here, they were given so many years to have jobs, homes, to be able to speak the language, and if they couldn't meet all those standards, they went back. They were not given free health care, food stamps, all these. I mean, they weren't allowed to milk the system. I mean, how can we just open the borders and allow people to just keep coming in and milking us dry to where we wind up being a third world country ourselves?
All right, thanks for the call, Glenn. What about that?
That's actually an interesting topic he brought up about the German people. When the mass German immigrations came across basically in two ways, when we were first forming as a country, and then secondly during World War I and World War II. A lot of the issues back then in the 30s, particularly with the groups of Germans who immigrated then, there was a lot of questions of loyalty. That's kind of when we passed our first laws limiting immigration in 1929. It's also when we kind of instituted things like the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and stuff like that, because those particular groups of times and those particular countries are very strong empires, and there was a real worry and a real issue that those beliefs of the people coming over here were not so much to come here and be good Americans, but were to come here and kind of like, adopt and change. Even Thomas Jefferson wrote, you can't believe that everyone that comes here for the country comes here for the good. And that was kind of a mass hysteria that was going on then, kind of similar like it's a mass hysteria that's going on now. And I don't think it was any more right then than it is now. Those people who came here and they worked their asses off and they built families, they built communities, and no one can argue that they improved the country. And I think, it was kind of wrong that we put them in that position, but you had to look at the times. We just had a big war with Germany, people were scared.
Well, you talk about mass hysterical people and whatnot, though, but Glenn, gee whiz, people that are coming across, many people that are coming across will not assimilate into this country. They take advantage of the social programs that are available, and it's hurting this country. It's hurting the state of Texas economically.
I agree with you that on Craig. Again, I don't think that we should provide the economic incentive of free money. It's like in the invisible hand in the market economy. If you offer a bounty or you offer a subsidy on a subsidy, like in the book they were talking about fishing, right? Your people don't become better at fishing; they become better at collecting the bounty. And I think, what the real issue isn't with the immigration. The real issue is the fact that we offer that in the first place. If you take that off the table, then you start, getting people who come here who want to work and not people who come here and want to collect a benefit. And that's where the real issue lies. When you talk about immigration reform, you have to look at what's actually wrong, and it's not what's wrong with the people, it's what's wrong with the economic incentive you're providing them. And you're absolutely right. It's not a good thing. You don't want people here to come milk the system. You want people to come here and improve the society and improve the system.
It's 9:24. We'll say hi to another caller, and you're on the morning show on AM 1070. Good morning.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good.
I was just going to call and weigh in on what y'all were talking about the Germanization. I don't know, I'm not real up on my history and all this, but I don't remember the Germans bringing over a whole lot of gang warfare or drug culture or any of that kind of violence that we've seen with a lot of the Latin American immigration. I was just wondering, what's the whole point? I just want to get y'all to say about that.
All right, thanks a lot. What do you think, Glenn?
Well, those are social issues that didn't exist at the time when the German immigration came, but they definitely brought their own problems with them at the time, both the Germans and the Jews. That's why they passed a lot of discriminatory laws with them at the time. And it's not so much that the issue was with gangs or drugs back then, but it was their issues that they had back then, and that's why they did the things that they did. And that's kind of what we're facing right now. And the issue, again, with gangs and drugs and stuff like that is you have a lot of programs that kind of, and back to the previous question you had, Craig, about why the current situations don't assimilate with the communities. When you create a subclass, when you create a group of illegals and you place them in a situation where they're really not allowed to integrate for fear, for prejudice, and for racism and stuff like that, they're not going to, they're not going to come in and be a part of the community. And that's kind of a double-sided sword where it kind of it's like, how do you do this? You got this ideal out there. We have this idea of what America is. We have this idea of the American dream, and it can be true for when you get here. And there's a lot of people who have made that transition to the American dream. But there's another group who, for lack of education, for lack of, not understanding the system and stuff, don't ever assimilate, so they form their own little separate community. And the Germans and the Jews, when they did their mass immigrations in the 30s, did the exact same thing. Particularly here in Texas is a great example. Texas was an area where a lot of the Slovenians, a lot of the Eastern Europeans, and the Germans made their settlements. And for many, many years, they had towns that were exclusively their culture. And even now, when you look across the map, there's towns that are distinctly German names, and it's always been that way throughout history.
I'm not I am not a racist person by any stretch of the imagination, but come here, do it legally, and assimilate into the country, no problem. We have had so many Hispanic callers, Glenn, that have called in here and said the same thing. We need to crack down on illegal immigration. It really is not a racist issue.
Yeah, I understand that too. To me, it's not a race issue either so much as an economical issue. Cracking down on the illegal immigration costs money. Having people immigrate to your country, with these current entitlement systems.
It may cost money, but it costs a lot of money to take care of all the illegals that are coming in.
I agree with you, Craig. I think that both of those are wasteful systems. And the issue, again, is not with the immigrant. The issue, again, is why do we have a system of entitlements that allows a person to not come in here, work, and have a good job and an environment to help you start up a business? And I think that's the real issue that we're looking at here. We wouldn't have these issues about worrying about cost and worrying about economy if we focused on making sure that we had an environment that allowed us to have our own business, that allowed us to create more jobs, allowed us to grow the economy. And right now, our environment is we pass laws that are very anti-business, very anti-small business, that are very protectionist to large business. And so what you end up having is a very large labor pool of people on the bottom of all different races kind of competing for that small amount of resources that are available. And that's what really brings the xenophobia about. And that's the part that's wrong, Craig. It's wrong that we don't have the thriving economy and the thriving environment to support all this. And that's the thing I think we should all kind of pull together toward and say to our legislators, okay, why are we focusing on things that don't matter, immigration and border, when if you fix your economy, if you fix your social system and stuff like that, all that fixes itself on the bottom.
That's what they ought to do. Tell that to Felipe Calderon to fix his economic situation in the country. And I do not believe it is xenophobic whatsoever.
Oh, shouldn't say it's xenophobic. I'm saying it creates xenophobia when you have a competition for a scarcity of resource. That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying hi to another caller.
And it definitely does exist on a smaller scale. I'm not saying you are, Craig. I think you're a pretty decent guy, but not everybody views it in the same light.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty decent. That's a start. Anyway, and I appreciate that. You're on the morning show. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good. I'm not a racist. I got a lot of friends that are Hispanic, and I wouldn't trade them for any other friends, but, they come over here trying to change our laws and tell us how to live. Why is it so hard for them to do it over there? They got a beautiful country, and if I was starving, I imagine I would fight, the government to help me out. I just can't see why they can't do it over there. They can feed themselves, feed their children, get them educated, but they want to bring it all over here.
All right, appreciate that comment. Glenn, what about that?
And I think that's kind of one of the big casualties of the drug war and the drug violence. As we as Americans don't go to Mexico as much as we used to. But if you take a trip down there recently to any of the areas and look, the economy of Mexico is thriving. They are fixing the economy down there, and in large part they're doing it at our expense. Because again, you've created these situations where it's much more beneficial for Ford to move down there, But the irony of the situation is some of the trade laws and stuff kind of hamper their economy. What will happen is, what you're looking at is we're near parity with Mexico right now. If you go down there and look at disparity of wealth disparity of things like that. And I think that's probably the more scarier thing for most American citizens. I don't think that they realize our country has degraded to the level that when you look at Mexico's quality of standards of living and you look at our quality of standards of living, you look at their economies versus our economies, I think the parity level is so close now that it would frighten the average American.
Mexico does nothing, it seems, to stop the flow of illegal their citizens moving into this country illegally. And if it is such a thriving economy, why are they coming here?
Well, it's kind of like right now you have like a lot of Americans migrating to Asia. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a large expatriate community of U.S. citizens living in China. And the reason they're leaving is like a company I worked for in California, it was a high-tech company, just packed up and moved one day and went there, and they basically told us, you're either laid off or you can move to China. And, not wanting to move to China, I went and found another job. But same thing kind of happens there. As their economies are changing, certain groups of their workers are being lifted up, just like here, our engineers and our scientists and stuff are being lifted up. Our old factory workers are kind of finding themselves without a job. Same thing's happening there. Their agricultural workers, as they're moving to a more industrialized system like we did in the 20s and 30s, their agricultural workers are finding themselves without a place to be and kind of looking for what they can find. And that happens in every society. That's kind of a natural part of the business society. One segment comes up and one segment comes down. The problem is when you come to the United States after you've been hyped up on the dream of what's here and you find out what you thought was here isn't here, the job's not here, there's not a place where you can work like you thought there was going to be. So, but then you find out there's this great program. If you go and sign up on this list, you can get this, and that's really the issue is, we've created a safety zone or a pocket right there where work's not an option, and that's what I find wrong.
All right, we'll say hi to a couple of more callers, and with us on the radio, Glenn West with Una Voz Unida, and you are on the morning show next on AM 1070. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Well, I think that the one draw that brings a lot of the Mexicans over here is the dollar differential between the dollar here and their peso over there. One American dollar is maybe, I think last time I checked, was like 13 pesos. So if you come down here and you make $100 a week, you send it back home to Mexico, that's 1,300 pesos. That's the number one draw for people to come here is to send back the money, and it's going to be worth 13 times more than it's worth here in America. The dollar is. That's the number one draw that they come over here for, is to send it back. And that supports their workers over there. They'll start building themselves homes and houses over there. And it's got to be that. But the dollar's worth more over there than it's worth here. That's what I think.
All right, thanks for the call. We do appreciate that. Glenn, what do you think?
Well, it's true that there's an exchange rate between the U.S. dollar and the peso, and it does fluctuate between somewhere I've seen it fluctuate as low as 8 and as high as 15 at sometimes. But, again, that's an exchange rate. That's a market economy that's more a ratio of how many dollars we have in circulation and how many pesos they have in circulation. What sets their market down there is supply, demand, and goods. And if you travel to Mexico, you find out it's kind of weird. Certain things are more expensive in Mexico than here. Like if you want to buy a part for your car that's manufactured for Ford, because of NAFTA, the Ford company, the manufacturing plant's located in Mexico City, has to send it up here to the distribution plant in the United States, and then it has to ship back to the outlet stores in Mexico. And they pay about 3 times as much as we do for electronics and for car parts and stuff. So that's one of the big pluses to coming up here. Your actual cost of living for material goods is a lot cheaper. But on the flip side, in the United States, our labor markets are kind of upside down, where our labor market is highly expensive. So here we can buy cheap goods and we pay expensive labor. And in Mexico, it's just the opposite. They have very expensive goods, but really, really cheap labor. If you take your car down there and get it worked on, you can get a guy to do it for, a couple of bucks an hour. And that's really, again, has to do with supply and demand. They have a surplus of unskilled labor pool down there, which really drives the labor pool down. And they have scarcity of parts and materials. But even something as simple as an Amazon Kindle, you can take it for granted. You can go to Target and buy it for $139. You go to one of the stores down there, and you try to buy it, and you're going to pay almost $300 for it. And, there's a big difference in cost of goods in Mexico than the United States because of the way their import system works.
It's
So it's not really a lot. The dollar exchange rate really has nothing to do with their cost of living and stuff down there and what they spend for materials.
9:36. Glenn, let's say hi to another caller. You're on the morning show on AM 1070 and KWEL.com and DesertVision.net. Good morning.
Good morning. Craig, the real issue hasn't been even talked about, and that's if we have an open border that allows people that really want to hurt this country to come in. And I feel that that's a horrible thing to do, is have an open border. Now, I'm a Hispanic American myself, or Mexican American myself, and I just think if we do that, we're going to allow people that really want to hurt this country to come in. They'll sneak their way in, too, just like all the illegals are doing right now. And, I mean, they've even passed a bill where truck drivers from Mexico, they don't have to go through all the regulations that we have to go through with our hazmats and tankers and all the stuff that we got to go through. They don't have to go through that. So, I mean, that's going to cause more problems. That's the truth of the matter.
We, the fact is the United States and many, many parts of the country is rapidly becoming third world because of all of the problems that we have along the border.
Exactly. And I feel that if we don't hold that issue up, I know there's people that want to come here and make a good living for their family, and that's great. But it's the people that want to hurt us that we need to keep out. And you can't do that with an open border.
Point well taken, and we appreciate the call. Glenn, what do you think?
I used to run security for all the naval bases in Hawaii when I was in the military. And we went through different cycles and policies where we had open base, and anybody from the community that could come in the base and leave the base. And we had, after 9/11, I was the security officer there, and then, we locked it down, went to a, force protection condition Delta, locked it down and stuff like that. And what I learned in that time is that whatever system you have in place doesn't stop a motivated and ambitious person who wants to come and do damage. And those people who do want to come and do damage to this country, are going to find a way to come in and do it. And that's not just be nihilist about it or defeatist. That's just realist. That's how they do it. If they have a mission in mind, they will accomplish it.
Yeah, but why
100% successful?
But why make it so easy for them?
Well, because it doesn't change. It doesn't change. The ease level for them is always the same. And that's one of those things when you go to anti-terrorism schools and stuff like that, you learn. Because even though the terrorists, may have wanted to come and blow up a certain building, say the Capitol building in Austin, if he didn't get there, say your security system stopped him at 200 feet and he blew up a house, the accomplishment is still the same. He still killed Americans. He still created fear. He still created chaos. He still created all this other stuff.
But that's no excuse for a wide-open border.
Well, the point I'm trying to say is your levels and rates of changes of incidents, whether you're completely locked down or you're completely wide open, are exactly the same. You're going to have the exact same number of attempts, whether you lock the border down or you don't. And that's been argued in circles over and over at the highest levels of defense to try to come up with a solution to, and you can't. So the reality of it is, why spend the money on security? And that's ultimately what the military always decides. They realize that this heavy-level lockdown is just unsustainable. You can't maintain it with your economy and stuff. You're spending tax dollars on a government drain that generates no income and nothing positive and doesn't prevent anything. And what it becomes is kind of a futile and failed effort. And like you said earlier, Craig, we are becoming a third-world country. There's no question about that. And the issue of spending more tax dollars on things that don't generate business and don't generate revenue, like closing down the border, won't solve that problem. And that's really the focus you got to realize.
So just open it wide open.
It's already essentially wide open anyway. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying is you're already seeing the level of migration you're going to see regardless, because right now you can go pick anywhere you want, whether it's Canada or whether it's Mexico, and you get 30 miles from either border city that you look at, and relatively the border is wide open. So adding more controls or changing anything is not going to change the inflow, really, because you're already seeing what a wide open border is.
That sounds like a very defeatist attitude.
I don't think it's a defeatist attitude. I think it's just a realist attitude. You look at the reality of the situation and realize, okay, this is all it's going to be. This is the worst it's going to get. So why don't I focus my efforts on what's important, and that's building up our economy and our society, and not worrying and focusing on this small thing that's not going to change regardless of what I do.
Yeah, but it's surely not a small thing, the wide open borders and the millions of people that are coming in illegally. That's a big issue.
Well, it's an issue in terms that there's no jobs for them. It's an issue in terms that there's no support system to accommodate them. That's the issue.
So should we provide jobs for the people that are coming here illegally and breaking the law?
No, what you should provide jobs for is so many people that you, just like the original intent of Jefferson and Franklin, is you provide a shining society of economic opportunity, a society that people who want to come here and grow themselves can come to. It's kind of an idealistic view, really, but it's something that, an endeavor that I think that our country has envisioned and worked on for over 200 years, approaching, 300 years now.
And we do have that. We do have that, but just do it legally.
Oh, and I agree with you. Again, my issue is not with the current status. I agree that the law is the law, but we can definitely fix the law. You can definitely change it and definitely make it so that we don't provide excessive encouragement for people to come here, and we can make it so that people who come here come here for the right purposes.
Well, we could talk all day, and I got to run. But anyway, Glenn,
all right, Craig, it was a good time. I appreciate it.
Let me. Okay, now you are with Univosa Unida. What is your capacity?
What is my capacity? I'm just a member.
Okay.
I don't have any office or anything like that. I'm an engineer. I work out here at the looking after the plant there in Eunice. I'm a nuclear engineer, so I kind of it's a. Like I said, it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart, and, I have a couple extra minutes and stuff. When I'm not busy for my work, I like to volunteer and work on those issues that are important to me.
Okay, maybe you and I can get together and talk again. Love to do it.
Hey, Craig, anytime. I like that. I enjoyed being a guest on your show.
All right, thanks.
Hey, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Glenn West, Univosa Unida, 17 away from 10, and we are way behind time right now. Well, you're on the morning show on AM 1070, and good morning.
Good morning, Craig. I was just wanting to comment on your guest caller's reasoning about securing the border, if I may.
You bet.
It would be about like taking the fence down around the White House, and just opening that up and see how well that would work. You might have a bunch of people rush in, but say with the fence up, everybody's going to get discouraged, and the ones that aren't going to be discouraged, you're going to easily see, you're going to be able to identify, somebody that's not discouraged, and as opposed to, if you keep the border completely open, everybody's going to rush over. When you discourage these people from coming, then there's going to be fewer people, and it's going to be easier to identify the ones that are going to do harm.
He didn't seem, Glenn West seemed like a nice enough guy and everything, but he doesn't seem like he's really concerned, like they're going to come anyway, so why, we can't stop them, so why even try?
I would imagine he has an agenda, and the truth doesn't have an agenda, as Glenn Beck says, and that's the bottom line. People that don't make sense or can't reason things out have an agenda, and they tend to pervert and twist the truth. And so that's where a lot of those people come from. And you can get mad at them all you want, but bottom line, they have an agenda, and they just twist things to fit their agenda. And people with any kind of common sense and wisdom that want to do what's right, want to do what's good for our country, and they're going to stand up for the truth and look beyond that. I would hope.
Well, I would hope so, too, and it's, it is not a racial issue, and he was talking about xenophobic things. It's not that. Maybe to some it is, I suppose, that may be true, but most people simply want you to do it the right way, and that's not a problem. And how many Hispanics have we had call this radio broadcast and have said the same thing? It's not a racial thing. It's common sense.
Exactly, and that's the bottom line. It's an agenda, and they have, that's the bottom line. They just have an agenda, and they're willing to twist the truth and do anything they can to get it done. And and that's what people have to raise up. I don't care how nice you are or how persuasive you are. If it's not the truth, it's not the truth.
All right. Well, we appreciate the comments and appreciate your common sense. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You bet. Mexican Constitution does not allow foreigners to take part in the political affairs of the country, much less voter ID. If you're a foreigner and you live in Mexico, forget it. You're not going to vote. Don't even ask about I demand to vote, whatever. I mean, I'm upset with the voter ID bill. And I'm talking legal immigrants in Mexico don't have equal employment rights. And the Mexican Constitution says foreigners, not just illegal immigrants, but foreigners may be expelled from the country for any reason and without due process. So think about that. We're going to come back. We ran a little long. In fact, we ran way long with Glenn West, but that's okay. But we'll come right back. We have some email in this morning. Faye has sent us an email, Faye Hall. And I know that Faye is very active, and she writes letters to the editor and the OA and everything. But Faye Hall says, since that guy stated they're in favor of removing the safety nets that give illegal benefits, we need to find out if that includes anchor babies. And Faye says, I was going to call, but I'm too tired. Good interview. Thanks. Appreciate it. Terry says, you just don't understand. If we can't enforce a law, we just do away with it and make it legal. So there's no use in trying to keep the illegal aliens out. We just let everybody in and give them jobs. And those of us who have paid into the system 40 years are just out of luck. I had better go take my blood pressure medicine. This from Terry. Terry, thank you. An email from Barbara. Tell the guest to stop speaking doublespeak. He knows exactly what his organization would want to do with our nation and constitutions. Persons in this country who have entered illegally are illegal aliens, and everybody knows how Mexico treats people who enter their country illegally. And yes, I have German family who came in 1959. They had to speak, write, and read English and take a written exam and know American history before they could become a citizen. While my aunt was in that immigration office in 1959, there was a Mexican couple who the lady was applying to become a citizen. She couldn't even speak English. Why do we give Mexico a pass? And so, I don't know. Good question.